Welcome back to Badger Blitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by my good friend, Rivals.com national analyst Clint Cosgrove. Like we always say, buddy, best time of the week.
Best time of the week. Let's go.
Let's freaking go. I've got a new computer. Hopefully things will be running a little bit smoother here this
Woo!
week.
Smooth on my end. Love
All
it.
right. Well, I love it too. So, and the Badgers, I've been loving it. Obviously, in the transfer portal, portal season we think is over after 13 editions for the Badgers. Now it's back into good old-fashioned recruiting, Clint. This is the bread and butter for you, I know, and for every program across the country. You can do as much as you want with transfers, but you can't build a program without having old-fashioned recruits. Badgers have a big junior day coming up here soon. I think they've got about 15 dudes coming up onto campus. Some of the big junior day prospects coming to campus here, I think are really interesting, I should say. We're going to get into the tape on the two tailbacks that will be there, Darrion Dupree and Jordan Marshall, here in a little bit. But our friend John McNamara, publisher for Badger Blitz, put out his list today of guys who they know are going to be there. Some of these names, if you've been watching Badger Blitz TV for a while, they're going to be pretty familiar. Ben Roebuck, Austin Alexander, who's already committed, Cooper Catalano, Marion Stewart, Rob Booker, Sam Pyloff, Donovan Harbor, Kari Jackson. You know, lots of really high-end talent coming in for this junior day weekend. Clint, a couple questions here from the den. First of you, any surprises here? And second of all, who do you think is most likely to spring for an early commit?
What do you mean by surprises?
I don't know. Surprises that I didn't think they would be this high on this guy and give him a junior day invite.
Okay. Yeah, no,
because there were a couple for me, for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily that. I mean, because you can bring in a ton of kids on junior days. So it's an opportunity to get guys who have a chance, plus guys who are big time players all together in the same spot. If they all have a good time together and get along, that can reap dividends. Maybe more on the surprising end is the caliber of player that's coming in. A kid like Marshall coming from Ohio who has the who's who of everybody offers. Obviously, Wisconsin speaks for itself when it comes to running backs, but maybe that's not a guy who comes to a Wisconsin junior day in the past. Marion Stewart, Darrion Dupree, those are both big time, top 150, top 200 players. Extremely dynamic. I don't think either of them probably had Wisconsin high on their list. I know from talking with Marion, he liked Wisconsin in the past, but they just didn't throw the ball, so they weren't going to be in the mix as much as he liked them. Now things have changed. He drops top 7 the other day. Wisconsin's in the list. You see the comments. It's crazy watching the fans on my Instagram, the comments, because usually it's the Ohio State or Michigan, that kind of take over the feed, and it was Wisconsin fans that took over the feed, and I haven't seen that before. So I think there's a lot of excitement. There's obviously some big time players coming through, and it's almost like we had a crystal ball, because we've talked about and broken down the film on almost all of these kids months ago before this even came to fruition. So it'd be interesting to see how it all works out.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at Cooper Catalano first game of his sophomore season, so I feel pretty good about that here.
You identified that one. I didn't even know who he was at that point.
Shout out to a couple friends with their ear to the ground on inside the state of Wisconsin. Okay, if you had to pick one guy to commit this weekend, who is it?
There's young kids, and a lot of these guys are highly contested players. So a lot of them, even if they want to commit, they're going to explore their options. So when you look at these, I'd like to think it's going to be an in-state kid. My guess would be maybe Robert Booker. Unless, Marion and Darrion come up and they're like, let's slide up here together. But, I think they'll let their recruitment continue to play out, because they're both national recruits. But I do think Wisconsin will be in it for them. Sam Pyloff, I could see him committing as well. So there's a group here. You never know, even with Ben Roebuck. I understand, he's got a lot of things going on, but he understands the culture of Wisconsin offensive line, and he's familiar with the staff from Cincinnati. So maybe he goes up and loves it, just from my time around him, he seems like a Wisconsin type kid. So you never know what can happen. A lot happens during these junior days. For some kids, it's let's go and check it out. For some kids, it's I hope I get an offer. And for some, it's like, I fell in love with the place. This is home, and I'm ready. But you typically see that, and I would expect it if a commit's going to come, it would be from an in-state guy like Robert Booker.
Yeah, Robert Booker to me is the guy that stands out definitely on that list. But you just mentioned Darrion Dupree, and we've talked a couple 2024 running backs on this program before, most notably Corey Smith, the in-stater. He's not going to be there this weekend, but two really big-time running backs are Darrion Dupree and Jordan Marshall. Let's break down the tape for some of these guys. It's probably my favorite thing that we do is get you on and get your scouting eyes on some of these guys. So first one, your neck of the woods, Darrion Dupree, a guy I know you've been around for a while. Just who is he as a kid and as a prospect, and then we'll bring up the tape here in just a second.
So I first saw Darrion his freshman year, or after his freshman year at a showcase. Couldn't believe he was a freshman. He was about the same size he is right now. His dad's huge, played at Michigan State. Darrion's more of the all-purpose back. He ran like 4.5 something back then. Incredible ball skills, incredible body control, snapping off routes, making people look stupid in space. So I knew he was going to be special back then. I mean, you see him make people miss in space. I mean, look at the balance. And the thing that you really like about him, he's not that power back, but he doesn't he doesn't run with a lot of force, but he's very slippery. You're not going to get him down with one hand. It's sometimes you'll see two tacklers trying to wrap him up, and slippery is the best word that I can come up with because unless you wrap his legs up and get another guy on him, up top, you're not going to bring him down. You see the burst there. He's got the long speed. He's a home run threat. But just the overall balance and body control and body mechanics are what's most impressive. Look at that. I mean, you got two guys wrapping him up. You just look at that balance right there. And like I said, these are guys who have hands on them, and it's not like he's overpowering them. It's just like his balance is so good. And if you don't get a firm hold on him, you're not bringing him down. He's going to use his arm to keep him up. He's going to use his feet to move laterally. And like I said, he's slippery, but you get him in the open field, a good chance he's going to score. Last game that I was at this year, I think he got hurt in it, but he was like done at the first quarter already, had 3 touchdowns. And, this game right here that he's playing against Loyola Academy, one of the top programs in the state, this is a big time back. We had him very, very high, like way higher than probably anybody else in our early rankings. The question was how big would he get, and he hadn't grown a ton. Now he has filled out, but then we switch him to all-purpose back, and really the size doesn't matter. He's in that Austin Eckler mold. He can return kicks, return punts. His kid can do everything. You see him split out right here. He's dangerous. He's dangerous, and I always go back to and I look at things from a defensive perspective. And you see his vision there. He's a patient runner, but he knows it when he needs to bounce. And you don't see him running too far sideline to sideline. But what I was saying about, when you're trying to scheme an offense and you're making personnel groupings, well, if the guy lines up at receiver or slot 30% of the time, and then maybe he's motioning to the backfield, or maybe he's lining up at running back, and then motioning out to the slot, then you got to say, okay, do we count him as a running back? Are they bringing in another running back with them? And so you make your calls based off personnel groupings and situations. And it just gives a defense a lot to think about, a lot to deal with. And, he's going to create problems at the next level. And you just love his ability as a return guy as well. And like I said, I mean, I'm partial to defense, but he'd be a big time corner as well.
Yeah, the one trait that stands out to me is balance. His balance is incredible. You see him, go down, have an awkward angle where he's got like a pinky and 3 toes on the ground, and he somehow spins out of it and is able to reaccelerate in 3 steps. And that's, that trait is something that is, can be really hard to come by for tailbacks. So, yeah.
I mean, body mechanics, body control, like you said, burst, he's at full speed pretty quickly. And he also has some long speed to go with it. And so that is not as a group, a trait that you find in a lot of running backs. So, Wisconsin would love to have him. He's not the traditional power back, but he's a guy that's going to create mismatches, and he's going to be able to hit the home run.
All right. Well, another guy that I think has actually some different traits as a running back, but is a very talented back in his own right, is Jordan Marshall out of Ohio. Now, I know you
Yeah.
had, Darrion really high early on, and I know that Jordan, you were telling me before the show, is a guy who's sort of creeped up on you a little bit, and you've been really impressed at the growth he's made, especially from his sophomore to his junior season.
Yeah, so he had all these huge offers early on, and I don't know if it was like when I turned on the film, I was just expecting him to be the biggest world beater ever, and I was like, oh, okay. But then, the more you watch him and you see what he's capable of, this kid is downright special. He does resemble a Wisconsin running back. He's a little bigger in that sense. When you talk about Wisconsin running backs, he sees the field very well. His cutting ability is fantastic, and he's not a guy you're going to bring down with an arm tackle. And you see the balance there again. Just burst, cutting ability, great vision, speed to hit the home run. And like I said, he's a bigger back, so he can run between the tackles. You love it there. You see the defense over pursue, cut back. He can almost feel where the defense is going to be, and that's one of his greatest strengths is his overall awareness. He sees the defense over pursuing, cuts back, and I love his cutting ability. He doesn't lose very much speed when cutting opposite direction. Plays for a great program. Reads his blocks, patient runner again, and you know what? He can hit the home run as well. So he's a guy who can run between the tackles, but you can also bring him to the edge. And he reminds me of kind of the old Wisconsin zone backs. He's a long strider, but there's just so much to like about him. He's he's more of that true running back, whereas Darrion's more of that kind of your modern day hybrid receiver. Tailback. You could line both these guys up in the backfield, and people are going to have problems. I can't imagine kind of like a modern day triple option with split backs out of the shotgun and having to deal with those two. So he's got a little bit of everything. He runs with power. You love his cutting ability. You're not going to bring him down with an arm tackle. And this is a kid that is going to be highly contested, will be a national recruit, is a national recruit. But you know what? There's a new guard in town, and I don't put anything past him right now, to be honest. He's from Ohio too. He's familiar with this coaching staff. Be interesting to see if he wants to go and be the man in Madison.
Yeah, I think that when you say those, those old school Wisconsin sort of zone running scheme, one cut and go guys. I mean, to me, the guy that stands out as the comp is Monty Ball. I mean, that's pretty high comp considering how many touchdowns he scored. Yeah. But Monty wasn't the tallest guy, but he had long strides for his size. He was, muscled up under those pads, kept his balance really well. And for me, that's the guy that I kind of see when I turn the tape on for him. All right, well, we will finish up here asking you, Clint, I think it's now a weekly tradition. Have we heard anything about Jamel Howard?
Well, I've texted him twice in the last 24 hours and not gotten a response. So, no, we haven't heard anything on
Jamel Howard. He seems to be the piece that all the fans want, and you can understand why, right? I mean, the big body, he's probably the best defensive tackle left in the country, one of the best defensive tackles left in the country unsigned. So
at least with that frame at 300 pounds and those skinny ankles, as far as upside goes, I mean, he's not even close to being what he can be. But upside wise, he's one of the best out there, and there's a reason that you're seeing teams like LSU come in on him, and
Auburn, I know it seems like they're going to be a big player for him. I know they were pretty out front with an offer for him as well. So it'll be interesting to see who sort of goes there for him. Have you heard, are there any sort of like super late 2023 bloomers just in the Midwest, not necessarily going to be landing at Wisconsin, but any sort of late risers that you've seen here at the end of the 23 class?
I think I've talked to you about this, but he's not going to end up at Wisconsin. Maybe he could. He may have. His dad played at Wisconsin, but Chris Ballard, who's the GM of the Colts, his son Cole Ballard, was a baseball player, throws in the 90s, is a heck of a quarterback, 6'2", 215, runs in the 4'6", 4'7" range. I think he's going to go and visit Kansas soon. A lot of places at the Power 5 level are full at quarterback. He can be a heavy kid and that sort of thing, but he's a Power 5 player. So he's a kid that's kind of come on.
Yeah, Clint,
off the top of my head.
you sent me his film, and I was like, oh, like this dude can throw the crap out of the football. And even with inconsistent mechanics, it just, shoots out of his hand like it's nothing.
Oh yeah, and the fact that he can run at the size that he is pretty impressive. And with his dad playing at Wisconsin, so that was the first one that came to mind. I'm sure there's others, but yeah, no, they're always popping up. There's going to be somebody who pops up, and you're going to be like, "Where did that guy come from?" And I'm sure I've got a list somewhere, but off the top of my head, I don't really have a ton of them.
Well, we appreciate it nonetheless, Clint. That is going to do it for us here today on Badger Blitz TV. He is Clint Cosgrove, national recruiting analyst for Rivals at Rivals_Clint on all the social media. I'm Matt Perkins at _Perko_. Make sure you are subscribing to BadgerBlitz.com for all of your most up-to-date Wisconsin recruiting and football info and pretty much whatever else you want. It's there at Badger Blitz. And until next time, we will see you guys in the den.
In the den.